Welcome to Inner Niña Podcast, embracing your inner child while leading with strength. This is a space for Latina women and beyond who are ready to break generational cycles and lead from a place of wholeness. Together, we will reconnect with the little girl inside, the one who dreamed big, felt deeply, and longed to be seen, and honor her as we step in fully into our power. Join me, Maria Benitez, for heartfelt reflections and empowering conversations about identity, healing, culture, and leadership. Each episode invites you to embrace your inner niña while leading with authenticity, compassion, and courage. Welcome back to Inner Niña. Our special guest today is Elsa Sevilla. Elsa is a multi-Emmy nominated and award-winning TV journalist, TV host, filmmaker, motivational speaker, and best-selling author of Camera Ready, From Hardship to the Spotlight. She has dedicated her career to telling powerful stories on both sides of the border in San Diego, California, and Tijuana, Baja California, rooted in history and identity. Elsa is also a MANA member, dedicating years of service to support Latinas' upward mobility. Welcome to our Inner Niña podcast, Elsa. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having Maria. I love the title of the podcast.
Thank you. And thank you. I know you're very busy, so I am really honored that you have time to join us today and share your story. So tell a little bit about Elsa, your background, your heritage. What are you working on?
Oh, that's a lot of information. But yes, let me start out with, I think most people know me as a TV reporter on Channel 10 for many years, and now as a filmmaker and TV host on KPBS Public Media. But my journey began in Tijuana, Baja California, Mexico, born in Tijuana and raised in San Diego. When I was 5 years old, my family moved to San Diego. And I have a unique story, and I think we all have unique stories. My parents were born in the U.S., Arizona, and Texas, but their families were from Chihuahua and Zacatecas in Mexico, which is really neat to know and learn more, especially when you move to the U.S. You tend to lose a little bit of your heritage. So I also love Mana de San Diego, which we're both members. They have helped me connect to my heritage. My partner, Guillermo Sevilla, also helped me connect with my heritage. And that was really important because the more that I connected with my heritage, the more I knew of my ancestors and more about myself, which allowed me to be a more secure person, a more secure Latina, and to learn how to live with purpose. So there's a lot that we'll go ahead and talk about, but that's just a little bit of a synopsis about, where I come from and how it connects me to San Diego.
That's wonderful. And I know there's a lot that you do in front of the cameras. And one recent project that you have is your book signing. So you and I are in the same kind of path in a way. I'm doing an Inner Niña healing with this podcast. And your book talks about your inner healing through the journey of writing that book and revisiting your past. Tell us all about that book. What inspired you? And show us a book.
Yes, I'm also an author, and I'm still getting used to that because I just published about 7 months ago. My book is called Camera Ready, From Hardship to the Spotlight. I actually wanted to write a book about historic places series, the docuseries that we produce for KPBS. My passion is storytelling and history, and so that's what I wanted to talk about, and specifically women of color who were never part of the history books. And I'm on a mission to do that, to bring the stories of women of color, Latinas, Black, Asian, because their stories were never told, and they were very powerful stories. But anyhow, so I wrote my book, and it was just an incredible experience that I never imagined. As a journalist and filmmaker, I always tell people stories, and our training as journalists is always, you tell other people's stories, but you're never part of the story as a journalist. So for 35 years, I've been telling other people's stories, but I encountered a great person, Erika Alfaro, who became my mentor, who also is an author, and she wanted to share and encourage Latinas, Latinos to write their book because only 8% of published authors in the U.S. are Latinos. It's a really small number, and we're trying to increase that. So writing my book was therapeutic, was taking me back to my inner niña from 5, 6 years old and allowing me to heal in so many ways. And so I've also been able to heal through mana, through my hermanas, through my partner, through history, through storytelling. But writing the book allowed me to heal on a different level and to see what was there for so many years, which is childhood trauma, colonial trauma, traditional trauma, systemic racism, just so many things that hold Latinas back. And we wonder why we struggle. And there's so many things that are there that a lot of times people don't see. So I was pretty amazed. Now I'm telling everyone that they need to write their book because our stories are so powerful.
I agree with you on that one because I actually another things that I just recently learned is through Annie, another hermana.
Yes.
And she knows that part of this journey that I'm in is writing my book, right? Because we all have a story and it needs to be told. And she's like, you need to get with Elsa. They have a
Yeah.
book club. I want to sign up. And I
Yes.
have another hermana who I just did the episode earlier. And she's like, just keep writing. And I said, but I want to be intentional in my writing because I want to be able to tell a story. And I've never written a book. I mean, I have like maybe 25 pages in, but I'm like, I need to talk to someone that's already gone through the process and kind of give me a little bit of the guide. So I got excited when I was talking to her
Definitely.
because that's one of the things that I love about our community. You know, we talked about Mana. We share that in common that we're both hermanas. And just to share a little bit of how we met, we're
Yeah.
part of the Mana organization. I started with Mana de San Diego. And so does Elsa. Elsa is very active in the organization. And anytime we have events, she's very generous with her time and her resources. And so that gives us an opportunity to showcase other Latinas, the programs, and our hermanitas in a really different, bright light because she brings her experience behind the lens to showcase some of these events. So I get to see her in a lot of the events that we do here in San Diego. And I know that she does a lot. And I want to get a little bit of how you get started with the organization, kind of what encouraged you to join.
That's a great question because I think that we all have this incredible connection to mana. And I do always, when there's events, it's like, oh, how did you come to mana? Who was the person who introduced you to mana? So for me, coming to mana, I was in my early 30s. I didn't have a lot of mentors or any mentors outside the house. And as a first generation student Latina, it was really challenging. But when I came to mana, it was a couple of people that connected me to Mana, which is really interesting. Sofia Salgado, we worked at Channel 10. She invited me to the meetings very, very early on. The organization was about 7 years in. And then Adela Garcia, who I worked with her husband, Fernando Garcia, as a high school student in a government job. And so Fernando would tell Adela about me. But then when I got through Mana, I met Adela as well. So small world, right? And then Nelly Andrade is a Mana past president, and she's the one that literally gave me a phone call in those days and says, hey, we need someone who can do public relations for Mana to really put the organization out in the community for people to know about it. And so I thought, that's great. I'm interested. And what really convinced me was when she told me about the incredible, horrible dropout statistic in Latinas, Latinos. At that point, it was like in the 40% would drop out of high school and even junior high. And I was just appalled by that. I couldn't imagine that our community, there were so many young kids dropping out of high school. And I can see the hardship and how difficult their lives would be. And that's why I joined Mana. But then there was Olivia Puentes Reynolds, who was, I think at that time was overseeing the Hermanitas. And she really made an impact because she made sure that heritage was part of the Hermanita curriculum. And I would go to the events. So this was for the Hermanitas. But me, as a 32-year-old at the time, I was learning my heritage, reconnecting to my heritage, which was so important in me finding myself, finding my voice, and living with purpose. And so I credit my hermanas in Mana de San Diego so much because they've been a big, big part of my success.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I love about the organization. It's not just the programs, right? But because one of the things is that we embrace our culture. knowing whether you're from a Mexican background, El Salvador, we represent the different countries that we're bringing into the organization, and want to make sure that the next generation continue to embrace their roots, their culture. So anytime we have an event, we have not only from the food, the music, history, so the girls continue knowing their background and continue to embrace that. I wanted to lose. And we're just talking to another hermana that said, a lot of sometimes our parents being here, they don't want to invest in teaching their children their culture because maybe they think that they will fit in better if they don't focus on that. Our organization is like, no, they need to understand. They need to embrace it because it's important for them to know what our history is. I don't know if you know, Corey's from our North County chapter. She's like, I'm having those uncomfortable conversations with the parents because the parents are like, no, I want them to stay here because they have chores. I don't need to go over there and do anything about knowing like Mexican art or like there's an
Right.
mariachi festival that's coming, and music is a big part of who we are as a culture. We want to make sure our hermanitas at a very young age are introduced to so many different things
Oh, yeah,
within our culture, right? And
definitely.
that's part of the things that we do really well in our organization. Another part that part of what this is, and I'm glad that you're part of this journey, is I wanted to showcase the benefits of being part of an organization that believes in mentoring, providing scholarship opportunities for young girls. But it's not only young girls that are benefiting from this organization. We have our Latina leadership program in some of our chapters. We
Mhm.
have the Hermandad that we support each other, creating that sorority that no matter where we go, we help
Mhm.
each other out. Your strength might be something that like I may lean on and say, hey, how do you do this? And we want to create that. Creating this space for people to know is like, there's actually an organization that does that. How do I get involved?
Mhm.
The purpose of this also is I've been talking to our national hermanas. I'm like, we need to tell these stories because the only way we can grow is for them to see the benefits. You've been invested in the organization for many years. So you see the growth. You've seen the growth just in San Diego, the San Diego chapter. And the young ladies that start as little girls coming back, it's like a full circle that come back and say, Mana did this for me. I want to be able to give back and do it. And they come back and they become hermanas, they become members supporting the organization. That's how we continue to grow. So
Mhm.
I'm hoping this continues to create a platform to showcase some of these benefits so we can continue growing. So I'm glad
Yeah.
that you're part of the Hermandad here locally and sharing your story. So tell us a little bit, what else are you working on at this time?
Well, I'm really excited because I'm producing 3 new episodes of Historic Places. We had taken a little bit of a break, but now we're back, and I'm excited because we'll be telling the first people of the Kumeyaay Nation's history in relation to the American Revolution. It's the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution. So what was happening in San Diego during that time? And I'm really excited because it'll be from the Kumeyaay's perspective and also weaving in what was happening in the East Coast. I'm also working on, again, intentionally telling the stories of women of color that were never told before, and they accomplished incredible things. I'm also doing keynote speaking. So if anyone needs a keynote speaker for a conference or an event, I'm doing a lot of that. I'm getting a lot of requests, doing a lot of traveling, also showcasing my book at the time and my connection to history. I'm also doing media coaching. I've started a new part of the business that is media coaching. What happens a lot of times, people don't reflect on their story and how powerful it is, but also how do you tell that to other people, not only to empower yourself, but to empower others. And so, because of my media experience for 35 years, I'm able to teach them how to say it clearly and with confidence, and also how to present themselves on camera, body language, what to wear, what not to wear, all those things. So I have a lot of exciting things happening right now. So I'm happy about that.
That sounds exciting. Where can they reach you? How can they reach you? How can they get your book? And
Yeah.
maybe see some of the work that you produced.
Yeah. So they can reach me through sevillaproductions.com, our website. I have all the information about historic places, how we got started, what projects we're working on. And then also as the keynote speaker promoting my book. My book is on Amazon and also on Barnes and Noble online. And all that information is on my website. They can also follow me on social media, and all that is on sevillaproductions.com. I have a YouTube channel. All of it is Elsa Sevilla score speaker, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, and all of it. So that's how you can connect with
Perfect.
me.
Perfect. I'll be linking all your pages in here so they can easily find you. So I know your book and I can't wait to get my hands on it. And I'm gonna go find you so you can get me I can get a my copy signed.
Oh, yes.
So I know that you talked in that book, just when I was doing a little bit of the research, is part of that journey. What did you discover while you were writing the book?
That discovered a lot of things. Some of it was so what happened when I was 5 years old, my father suffered a severe accident where he fractured a skull. And my four siblings and I, there's eight total, but there at the time there was four siblings and myself with my father when the accident happened. Fortunately for us as young children, we did not see the accident. But what happened is that someone called 911. My father was taken to the hospital and ICU, obviously, but no one knew that we were still left in the camper truck. Hours passed and it got dark. Then the sun rose and we were there overnight. So the journey begins from that hardship, that trauma that we suffered at 5 years old. I was five. And then the police came. They took us to an emergency shelter for children. We were separated by age and we could only see each other during recess and lunchtime during a chain link fence, through a chain link fence. It was really hard to explain to the detectives where we lived in Tijuana so they could locate our home and our family, our mother. And it would take days, I believe it was even weeks before I don't know how they did it, but they found the home in Tijuana and they were able to locate my mom, which was the most important. And so we had to rush. They picked us up. We went back home to Tijuana. We had to come back. We found out that our father was in ICU and clinging to life, literally. And so it would be months before he could be transported to Orange County, where my grandmother was, so that they could help take care of him, and eight kids that were from the ages of 11 to 2 years old. So that was a big thing that happened to us as young children. We lived in a loving home with loving parents, but nothing could protect us from the trauma that we would face as young children. And then moving to San Diego to make sure that my father was able to recover. He did recover. It wasn't exactly the way he was before, but we were just so happy that he had survived because the doctors had told my mom that there was a slim chance of him surviving. And if he did survive, he would be in a vegetative state. And he wasn't. He recovered. He was a miracle. He was able to do so much of what he did before. There was a little bit of changes, right? Because a fractured skull is something very, very severe. So we were lucky that he did survive. And so that was the journey of us coming to San Diego and starting a new life. And like many people who move to the US or a different country, you don't know the language, you don't know the customs, you don't know anything. And so you're navigating everything and it's very overwhelming. So what I've learned from writing my book was really about how empowering my own story is. And I'm helping people transform their lives through finding their passion and transforming that and turning that into living with purpose, living a happy life, even though there's trauma, there's things in your life that you have to overcome. And we all have obstacles in our lives coming out of trauma and even, colonial trauma, generational trauma, and in our case, childhood trauma because of what happened. So it's incredible when you write your book. It's sort of a big therapy session because you're really examining your life and you're looking at all the things that happen in your life. And the more you put them down on paper, there's this magical connection that happens when you do that. And when you finish your book, you are extremely excited, very nervous. But when people come up to you and say, you know what, I had a similar situation where I felt invisible when I came to the US. I had to create a new world for myself so that I could succeed and do something empowering for myself, my family, and my community. So I'm now encouraging everyone to write their book because our stories are so powerful. And it's really important for the younger generation and even our peers to learn about our experiences and how we made it through and accomplished so much.
You said a lot of great key things to take away. Sharing your story is very therapeutic. And I can see that no matter, and I share this a lot, no matter where we look like right now in this shell, that little inner niña is still feeling that pain, that trauma. And I can see that in your pain, in your voice, because no matter how much you write in your book, you tell the story, it still gives you that flashback of when you were in the car with your siblings, the process of being away from your mom for weeks. And that doesn't go away. But I do believe that the more you speak, it's like your therapy. And we also talk about our culture doesn't really focuses on therapy, and we've talked about that as well. But it's very therapeutic to speak.
It is.
Therapeutic to share those stories, and it's important for them to know because in the outside world, this is very well put together. Elsa has it all. What they
Mhm.
don't realize is the journey that Elsa has taken to be where Elsa's at right now. And those journeys are important to be shared because
Yeah.
we have the young generation that are maybe facing some challenges because they don't know the crossroads they have ahead and they don't realize that that's part of their journey and they're going to be okay. Sharing your stories is going to be impactful for someone that's listening to say, wow, she went through all that and look what where she's at right now is going to serve as inspiration. Thank you for sharing that piece,
Thank
and
you.
I can't wait to read your book because now
Thanks.
that you mention it's important for us not only to support it, but it's we learn from each other in our journey.
Yeah, I
And you
agree.
mentioned you had all these siblings, and you're talking about them. How do they cope with that trauma? Because it's definitely childhood trauma. How do they cope with that?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a great question. It's actually a gosh, it's sad to think about because in our culture, it was, especially this was the 1970s, so this was about 55 years ago. And so it was you don't talk about it, you move past it, you bury it, you ignore it, and it's gone. But it isn't, right? Here I am 55 years later telling my story for the first time, and it still makes me cry because of the inner Nina.
Yeah.
I still feel the pain of what happened to us, but I've been able to overcome it in the sense of healing through mentorship, through support, community support, like my hermanas, my partner who's always supportive and always, helping me make sense of things. Because when you suffer trauma, especially at such a young age, your brain is rewired. And so you will see the world in a very different way. You have a lot more anxiety. You make things bigger than they are because of what you already went through. You don't trust the system. You may not trust adults. And so it can be very challenging. But in our culture, it's really sad because that's also allowed me to reflect on systemic, more generational and colonial trauma because what the Spanish did when it came to Mexico and Latin America, they erased a lot of what was the indigenous life and they created the Spanish communities. So that is, something that we still deal with, at least in Mexico 500 years later. And that's incredible that we're still dealing with that trauma. Because of the history that I've learned and researched through historic places, I also see that direct colonial trauma. And in Latina communities or Latino communities, we see also the religious, the generational trauma where girls don't speak, they don't have a place, they don't have a place at the table, they don't make the decisions. Fortunately for us, my mom was a feminist. She never said the word feminist, but she definitely was. And my father never said the word, but he was an ally. And so we were lucky that we were raised in a world where we had choices, but even though we had the choices and my parents didn't always say, oh, the boys can do it or the girls cannot, you have to stay home. They gave us the choices, but those cultural, things were still there and they kind of blocked us. But so surprised and pleasantly surprised and happy at how much I was able to overcome those and not listen to those cultural systemic things that held us back as Latinas. I think it was my mom. She was so determined and she showed us to how to be determined. When a door closes, knock on another door. If that door doesn't open, knock on another door. Knock until someone opens the door and
Wow.
lets you in. Someone will, and you will get ahead that way. She never said it. She only showed us. And so it's so empowering. We lived through the trauma and we made the best of it. And I think that we just got ahead as best as we could.
Well, applaud to your mom because that was tough in that generation. That's something that was very unique. You had to conform to the norms of the times, the family, the culture. So when you have a mom that it's the opposite, they get chastised, I think, because they're not going along with the norms of traditions and the family dynamic. So thank you for sharing your story. And I know it's helping not only you heal, but it's helping others. And one of the things that I share with the girls that we mentor, I mentor, and I say it's important for you to find your voice. I never tell the girls that I mentor to stay quiet. Speak your truth, speak your mind. I do the opposite of what we were culturally programmed to do. And doing the opposite of what we were programmed to do, like in my case, came with beatings because they try to break you one way or another. So that came through punishment. And as we get as adults, and we are finding our voices still, our punishment is different, And so I'm teaching the girls that continue to speak your mind and don't stay quiet. If you see something that is being done wrong, speak up because we want to change that way of thinking, that behavior is a bad behavior in our culture. And I'm glad that we're able to do that. And through our organization, one of the big focuses for us is the advocacy. And it makes me really proud to see a lot of the young girls in high school going out there and, voice their political views and stand up for what's right. They're getting that information because we're educating them on their rights. And so we're teaching the girls that it's okay to speak up. Um, I'm really glad that you're sharing that part of your story, as painful as it is to revisit. And I know it's something that I do understand is part of the healing, because I know every time you speak, it's still healing. It's a healing
Oh, yeah.
process for you.
Totally
You know.
agree with you.
So I'm looking forward to getting my hands on that book and reading it. And I'll be telling you, okay, I finished reading it
Yeah.
and this is what I got of it. I have my books in the back, that I support my Latinas. And like you said,
Mhm.
there's not a lot of the books out there. I have a lot of audiobooks, and I'm always looking for Latina audiobooks because I think audio, it's easy for me. When I was driving a lot, I was commuting a lot. It's easy for me to get the perspective because we
Mhm.
didn't have those a lot. Now we are seeing a lot of audiobooks, motivational, help self, books that are out there helping us. And now I have you from your perspective, and it's important when I'm like, oh, I know her. So it's getting to know. I always say that I'm a fan of a lot of Latinas in our organization. I become bigger fan when I start learning more about their journey. So I'm looking forward to that. Can you share a little bit of your wisdom, like Elsa wisdom?
Ooh, that's a lot, right? But it's great though. What my wisdom would be, especially for younger Latinas, but these young Latinas, I'm so impressed with them. There's so much smarter or more or braver at such a young age, and I'm so glad that they are. I see them and I'm like, wow, I wasn't doing that until I was 30 and they're 15, right? So I'm really proud that they're doing that they're finding their voice at a younger age, that they're speaking up, that they're putting themselves out there. So for me, I would say that my experiences would be definitely have a community. Once I found my community through my partner and my hermanas, I was able to do so much more because I felt safe. I felt that I had someone sort of looking out for me, telling me you're on the right path, keep going. And so that was a huge, huge benefit in my success. The other thing that I tell people is like, always put yourself out there. That's one thing that I did. I was scared. I didn't know what I was doing all the time, but I would put myself out there and say, I can do it. Or, hey, I would call someone. And that's how I got my show, Historic Places. I've been doing local news for about 18 years. And I was like, I think it's time for something more creative, a little slower. So I went to KPBS and asked if they had any projects that I could be doing. And they said, we don't have projects, but we have funding for documentaries. And I thought, oh my goodness, the stories I do are a minute and a half, and documentaries are at least 26 minutes without commercials. And I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I said, you know what? Yes, I will do it, because I was so ready to move on and I wanted to do history and storytelling through history. And so I said yes, and it would be weeks before I was feeling comfortable, like, yes, I can do this. It was really nerve-wracking, but I'm so glad I did. That was 18 years ago already in 85 documentaries. So it's incredible what happens when you put yourself out there. Also have a network, have partners, have mentors. And that's the great thing about Mana. I had so many indirect mentors like Nelly Andrade, Norma Hasso, Sofia Salgado, Inez Perez Chica, Adela Garcia, Annie Chavarria, who's one of my closest friends as well.
I
So
love her.
there's so many when you have that group of women, of people that love you, care for you, and want to see you succeed, and you return that favor as well. It's an incredible thing. And that's what I have found through Mana. And I'm so happy. And now I'm part of Lean In Latinas, another Latina organization. I feel so supported in a business sense, supporting me through the media workshops and providing more of those to more Latinas so that they find their voice and they know how to tell their story. And also through speaking, I'm getting more speaking opportunities to share my story and to sell my book, because that's what happens when you write a book. It's selling your book. And so if people buy my book on Amazon, also would love to get a review, because more reviews show how people are buying your book and it's resonating with people. And that's really important in today's world. So for me, definitely is having your community of mentors, of partners, of your network, putting yourself out there, even though you're afraid. And if it's something that you want to do, that it's going to take you to another level. Had I not raised my hand, I wouldn't be a TV reporter. Had I not raised my hand, I wouldn't have a TV show on PBS. Had I not raised my hand, I wouldn't have written my book. I wouldn't have provided media training for people who want to improve their speaking skills. So it's about putting yourself out there. And again, I love that the younger generation is doing so much of that, so much more than we did 20, 30, 40 years ago. So I would say those are the main things that drive me, that I think really made a difference in my life, along with adaptability, resilience, working hard, intuition, listening to that voice that kept telling me, you'll be a writer one day. I'm going to be a TV reporter. When I was in 7th grade, I knew what I wanted to be. And I followed that path, and I became a reporter. So those are the things that I think are super important in success.
Great wisdom, great wisdom. And I have to share, community is very important. And you shared a lot of the great ladies that, I'm also very fortunate to know. And taking a risk and getting out of your comfort zone can also explain how I got this, project podcast going through some challenges. And it was some hermanas that told me, you need to do this. You need to do something in, social media, you're influencing. And I was like, I don't know how to do it. I've never done podcasts. I've never done a YouTube channel. And I'm like, okay, let me learn. And it was encouraging because they were seeing something that at that moment I wasn't seeing that about me. Their encouragement and their inspiration, prompted me to, okay, how do I learn? And I started learning, and I'm still learning. I'm not at an Elsa level. I'm not going to be there, but
Aw.
I've created this, because, you're already doing it and that's your career. You're doing it really well. I remember when we did an event and you were doing all the production. I'm like, God, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That was a couple years ago when we did it at one of the big events. So I started doing this. I'm learning it, and then I'm reaching out to the hermanas, and I'm glad that they're being supporters and say, yeah, I'll join you. Yeah, and because sometimes you almost in your mind when you're still in your comfort zone, hate to go knock on the door or make that text or send that email because you almost expect a rejection.
Mhm.
That's an automatic or safety, right? We're programmed to be like, better not. And I get excited when I don't get a no. I'm assuming I'm gonna get a no, and I get a yes.
Yeah.
And then part of that conversation, I'm like, did you reach out to Elsa and Annie? She's my sister from another mister.
Yeah.
She's like,
I
I go,
do.
yeah, I adore her, and so she's like, I got hermanas for you. And then it's going back to the community, right? And that community is also creating, because the girls are seeing that. They're seeing how we are supporting each other. So we're teaching them that they also are there to support each other and support others. So we actually are
Yeah,
creating that
definitely.
visual for them. And when you say that this generation is a little different, because they're surrounded by women like you and others in the community, generationals that are saying, this is what can be done. This is what we're doing. And this is what you can do with no limits because you have a support system of Latina leaders, badass Latinas that are here to support you. And so, like you mentioned earlier in our session, that we're not always fortunate to have mentors, especially in our generation because of culture, change in countries, and also the lean
Yeah.
Latinas. And there's
It's
other
cutting.
Latina organizations that are growing as well. is creating that Latina sisterhood that we're expanding. One of the things that we do really well is also collaborate with other nonprofits
Yeah.
to make sure that we elevate our voices and supporting each other. So that's great, great wisdoms on that. So I know that your inner niña healing is done through your book, but if you had a chance to go back to talk to your little inner niña, little Elsa, what would you tell her?
Oh, you're gonna be such a badass. You
Yes,
have
you are.
no idea. What I've accomplished has been so incredible. My dream was to be a TV reporter when I was in 7th grade, and I was so lucky that I did achieve that dream. But then I became a businesswoman, creating my video production company, again with my partner, and then creating my own TV show, then doing media training, and writing my book and becoming a speaker. And so it's just beyond my wildest dreams of what I thought I was going to do. I thought if I make it to TV journalist, that's perfect. That's what I'm going to do for the rest of my life until I retire. But I've been able to do some incredible things. And so I would tell little Elsa, you're going to be a badass. Great, great journey. I'm very thankful, super, super lucky that I followed my passion and that I loved it. TV has given me literally everything in my life. My partner I met at Channel 10, our children, our craft, storytelling. He's also a storyteller as a photographer and editor and producer. And so we've been very lucky to do what we love. And I think that has helped me also find live with purpose because I love what I do. Storytelling and history is, it gives me a front row seat to history, to people's stories. And I'm able to learn so much through other people's stories. And that's what empowers me and allows me to live with purpose when I see women 100, 200 years ago, accomplishing incredible things. It allows me to dream big and know that I can fulfill those dreams. And so the community, as you were talking, is super important because when you're young, you get to see those older women or, maybe 5 years older, 2 years older than you, and then the 30, 40 years older than the young women, they're able to see these incredible role models sort of indirectly, right? They can see you and me in the community and say, wow, Maria accomplished so much and Elsa did this. So they have these incredible role models and that's what community provides. And it also provides a safe place. It provides safety, support, and know that you are not alone, that you're going to be able to call one of your hermanas or one of your partners or friends, and they're going to be there for you and you will be there for them as well. And that's what I love about community and why it's so important.
It is. And then you have so much to offer. Do you by any chance have like any workshops that can maybe people can sign up and you can teach them how to, how to do anything from behind the lens? Or I know there's a book club and that I'm looking to join. You mentioned there's a book club, so sign me up
Yes,
for that one. But
yes.
any other type of workshops that you are offering that, you can direct them where they can sign up? What do you got going?
Well, I'm providing the media workshops on how to speak, how to find your story, how to find your voice, and how to say it with clarity and confidence. And that information is on the website. And as a matter of fact, I had 3 Hermanita alumni who were part of my first media training workshop, and I was so excited. I've also had some of the Mana ladies be part of the workshop. So yeah, I provide a workshop and I could do it virtually or we can do it in person. And it's about learning how to speak in public, learning how to be comfortable and confident, focusing on what's important to say, not say a lot of things, but say key things, things that are going to resonate with people, that are going to move people when they hear your story. And so I'm really excited. I wanted to do it for such a long time, and I just started it this year. So I'm really excited to provide the media training workshop. And for the month of March, for Women's History Month, Lean In Latinas, I am part of that event. It's a coach-a-thon where I'll be providing free media training just for the month of March as part of Lean In Latinas. You can go to my LinkedIn page and find all the details or my Instagram page, Elsa Sevilla _speaker. You can sign up and this is a free session after March. Obviously, outside of Lean In Latinas Coachathon, there's a fee for taking the workshop. And it depends how many classes you need, 3 sessions, 5 sessions, because it's not just one time, right? It's a process. You would take a college course and you go twice a week. So in this case, it's a minimum of 3 to 5 sessions to understand your story, your voice, speaking with clarity and confidence. So I'm excited to provide that because I see the growth in women. And what's so important is learning why it's hard for us to speak in public and speak and do interviews and podcasts or get in front of a session or a class, even with the MANA group, and being afraid to stand up and say something. And a lot of it is related to our colonial trauma. Women aren't given a place, and a lot of times in the Latino culture or the patriarchal culture, right? And so I talk about that and how to overcome that so you do become a strong.
I love that. I'll be signing up for sure. It is something I really enjoy doing, and even in this opportunity with what I'm working on a podcast, because as I'm recording the session and people don't realize, the editing takes a while. And that's something I'm like, you have to see the episode a couple times and you catch your mistakes. So I'm looking forward to seeing some of your workshop episodes and joining some. So thank you for that. And I want to say thank you, really thank you for honoring us with your time, your story, and sharing your journey with us and being part of our Inner Niña community. To our listeners, thank you for listening and holding space for me. This is Maria Benitez. Until next time, thank you. Thank you, Elsa. Thank you for listening. Thank you for holding space for me. And thank you for allowing me to walk beside you as you heal your inner niña. Until next time, please don't forget to follow and subscribe.